Hello and welcome back to episode 5 of Reviews. Thank you very much for tuning in today and helping to support and promote the artists that we're going to review. On the show today we have Lorenzana as well as Angel Cano. Now we'll be looking at both these guys' showreels. If we've got time we'll have a look at their art stations and hopefully we can help them just get that little extra level of polish on their work so they can go much further. So without further ado, let's get started. So we're going to get started today with Aaron's work, so let's go ahead and have a look at his showreel. Immediately off the bat, I can see there's really high density mesh. It might be required for the purpose, but it doesn't need to be quite so high density. And there is a massive discrepancy here. Let's see if we can spin this around a bit. We can see you've got the nice loops that are coming down in here, but then you have these large gaps in between, especially here. This is a huge gap. It's bad modeling practice, and it's also going to be very bad for texturing. You're going to introduce a lot of stretching, and if this needs to deform at any point, this mesh won't be able to be deformed or damaged, so if the card is going to be crashed or something like that. Otherwise it looks fairly clean. It is incredibly reflective, which is not very realistic, but fortunately it allows us to give the model like a proper look to see if there's any errors. When you're looking at some kind of mechanical model, a place will always look as at the edges of the doors, the corners, and where panels meet to see if you get any odd bulges. There's certainly one up in here. There's this odd high reflection in here which doesn't match across, and then this feels like it's slightly forced angled. There's it's much thinner at the bottom than it is at the top here. To me, from having done this before in earlier models I was making, I did a lot of this lining that I would push over to hide mistakes, so that's what I think might be going on. As well, I don't think a lot of time's been spent with the rendering. There's a lot of noise all over, and it looks to be quite a heavy color cast on the general model. I don't know if that's in the textures, but I think it might be coming from this quite yellow HDR up here. Let's continue on though. Okay, so this model is super over the top dense. This wheel is insane, and there's no tread pattern by the looks of it. It just looks to be incredibly dense geometry, so there's no need for that at all. The density of these headlamps is complete overkill. It's slightly worrying that I can see already on the windscreen there's this kind of wavy topology. This comes up slightly and it comes down. This should be nice and clean, because if you're going to have the glass for refraction and reflections, you don't want to introduce any of this oddity in there at all. We'll be able to see that hopefully later on when there's an actual render. And there's something slightly funky going on in here, but it's very hard to read with the density of the mesh. Okay, now there's a very common mistake here. You've got the topology here. I like how this looks. This looks fairly decent. Slight issues here, but nothing too bad. But where you got this nice flowing topology comes in, now where it's meeting here, these lines are not meeting. When you're doing something like a car or some kind of a shape which continues, but there's broken panels in between, you want to have still that same transition, so you should have the same topology flowing across. That way you don't get any jitters or any odd lines. You see it especially in here. There's lots and lots and lots of topology coming into very little. So in this edge up here, I imagine when the wireframe goes away and we get to see this just as a clean render, I imagine there's going to be quite a lot of artifacting in there. You have the same down here, and just still the density of this wheel. I'm not seeing an introduction of any tread to give any reason as to why that's there. The textures look pretty low resolution. This looks very stretched. Yeah, especially you can see it in here. This should be a circle. This is your circle of stars here. Heavily stretched, very odd, but it looks more of a game res model at the moment, and I believe it's meant to be, from looking at the topology, I believe it's meant to be a full-on CG ready asset. A lot more time needs to be spent on the rendering. This is exactly what I was talking about here. So you see you have this line of reflection here. Now the shape of this card, this line, you can see it up here. This runs straight across. You can see it in here as well. This is just one straight panel. This reflection line, it doesn't change. Whereas across here you've got this nice clean sharp line, which then follows down here. It jumps up, and then this panel continues along. You've got this introduction of an odd artifact in here from the reflection. You have it across here as well, and this is well, especially here you see that this comes down, jumps up, then goes back across. This is just a product or a result of that changing topology. If you're going to model a car, personally the way I would do it is model this all as an object and then put the brake up so you have the topology all the way across already. For introductions of like cutting in door panels and things like this, there's plenty of ways to go around it. Normally the way I would do is I would cut the hole in, fix my topology, but do it on a copied version of the mesh, and that way I can use the original mesh to retopologize it on, so I'm keeping the curvature. You need like a shrink wrap, or so I use Modo, so I just use it's called a topology pin. It just basically sticks the vertices to the background mesh. You see there's something slightly odd happening in here as well. This panel here is a clean line, but here it comes up and then there's this introduction of something here. I think it might just be this bit of the models poking out on top, or this has been recessed back in slightly. As a whole, maybe 70-80% of the way there. All it needs is really a refinement pass. This would be okay for like a good solid blocking pass, just to establish how the model is, and then you would go in again. Personally, I'd retopologize most of this car, but I would use this as my base mesh to retopologize on top of. I think in Maya it would be Mesh Draw, I believe it's called. But yeah, it's a good starting foundation. But this texture stretching, such an easy thing to fix, and there's no real reason to have that on there. Now again, this is going back to the density of the mesh. I'm going to guess that this has been put into like a smoothing mode and then it's been frozen out at maybe level 2 or 3, because the density, this is a flat panel, there's no wobble on it at all, and the density of this mesh is complete overkill. It could make sense for whatever's going on in here. We'll need to see that later on, some sweeties or something, because they might have the requirement for their shape or displacement, etc. But this is just a straight flat panel. There's same down here. There's no need to have this level of density. Yeah, it's just a panel. You could easily reduce that down a massive amount and still have the same result. I'd personally, if I skip that back, see if I can get my drawing tool up here. So your key components would be, this doesn't allow me to draw straight lines, I don't believe, so bear with me here. So you'd need one line down here, as well as, oh my goodness, as well as at least one coming down the side here. Now these would be your loops to hold the edge, and then I would have something fairly regular, maybe 3 coming down this way. And then you have your edge loops here that'll keep it strong, or even if you're going to have this nice rounded edge, keep the same thing but have this as have your straight edge in the middle, which you would then bevel, which will give you this nice rounded effect. What we'll do is at the end of this clip I'll go in and make a quick version of this to show it more clearly, because obviously that drawing's not very handy. So if you keep this in mind, at the end of this clip I'll go in and put in a little clip of me making it, just to show you what I mean exactly by that. Let's continue on here for now though. Again, I don't know if it's the quality of the render, but these textures look to be at very low resolution. They're very blurred. I've got no idea what it is down here. I suppose it doesn't really matter to the course of the model, but I have no idea what those are, so it's very difficult to read. And if this thing's serving, if you put money in, why is there nothing inside the actual hopper itself? Okay, so we've got another card in here. Immediately all I'm thinking so far is all I'm seeing is mechanical things, very very standard mechanical, especially cars. So it's a slight down. I had a quick look through the art station that was provided as well. There are some kind of interesting robot type things and a few other projects, so it would be nice to have more of a breakup rather than just so many cars. Let's look for those telltale signs. Yep, we have it in there again. Reflection should continue all the way along, but with this reflection it's got a slight wobble to it. and then it's coming down, and then it's coming back up here. There's some odd wobble being introduced in here. I imagine it's probably a loop to help this a curved face. This loop's been put in without any consideration to the curvature, so you're getting this nice reflection, sharp, then it curves down again. Whereas you have on the car, you can see this is just continuous, there's no break. Slightly bizarre reference. I'm not sure why this car has been introduced in here. This has got a completely different front. Not sure. The windows as well. This is a, you can see in here, it's a telltale sign that these have got odd topology. You're getting this weird reflections, this wobbly weavy reflection rather than just a clean straight one. So let's have a look. Yep, as I thought, much heavier topology into really low res. This should have, again, let me just get my drawing tool up here. If you're going to have this level of density, fine, it's maybe a little bit of overkill, but if you're going to have that, you need to have the same thing all the way through here, because you can see when this has been smoothed out, this would be your supporting edge which runs down here, but when this has been smoothed, this line has stretched so far away from the side here. Sure, if it's a personal project, you'll be able to fix these texturing errors with a bit of kind of messing about, but for a VFX project you can't do anything like that at all. So let's just continue playing on here. And this looks fairly nice in here. We've got this topologies flowing straight down in, which is nice to see. This is what you should have on all these kind of matching edges. But I see on the bonnet here, I think it's originally been cut in, but then over on this side we're starting to introduce this extra topology again. This is possible to do, but it requires you to be at quite a high level of modeling to be able to get around doing things like that. And we're seeing some of these simple errors in here. It would be much better to just go in and learn really good fundamentals of how to do this before trying to use tricks like this. Just a general comment overall on this showreel is that the densities are all over the place. They give this very, very dense leg leading up into essentially nothing in here, super low resolution in here. There's this, oh, you've got this huge, this is going to be one of the key pieces of the costume. You can see it's the big shield. It's going to be the thing that's front of screen, and this has got less density than this little screw on the leg here, which is going to be much less hero. It's hard to tell as well for how dense it is. It's very hard to read the model. It looks nice, so it looks, with the level of texturing though, it almost looks like a game res model. So it could be worth doing another pass on this and just baking down some maps, some nice simple normal maps, nice diffuse, put in kind of an ambient occlusion map just to get those nice edgings in. Because from looking at this, if I saw this without the wireframe, I'd assume this is a very low res game model. So it's a shame to have all that topology built in, which is really bringing nothing to the model, unfortunately. Now this one on the other hand, this looks a good bit cleaner. There is still some slight variations, but it's much closer. The density is not insane. There's a much more uniform feel across the model. Yeah, this doesn't look too bad. It would just be get my movie drawing tool up here. So it'd be things like in here that you need some loops in here, the same in here. These probably don't deform too much, but you need to have that consistent topology in here as well, because I can see, well, I'm trying to imagine from the density of these lines, but I think there's 3 lines in here to hold this shape, another 3 here, so you need these supporting loops in between. Same in here, just to hold the textures and the shape overall. You got it down here as well. Should be lines in here. But other than that, it actually doesn't look like too bad a model. Personally, I'd move one of these to the very front. This is one of the best modeling pieces I've seen in this so far, so this should be the first thing that shows up. I would probably try and remove some of this yellowy orangey cast that seems to be in all the renders. It makes them look I suppose like vintage. It makes everything look a bit older. You've got this nice reference down in here, yet this looks like an older game that's got some kind of odd lighting baking put into it. It'd be worth just going back through, even just doing it in a video editing software, just to take that cast out of there. Okay, let's see what we've got here. It's the same thing again here with the densities. We've got really high resolution parts. These are very high res, and then you've got these huge sections. These are hero sections, and so little attention's been paid to it. There should be loops coming down in here, loops in here. I can see in this window at least there has been the effort made to put the loops in, but in this window it's just flat geometry and there's nothing there. Huge voids in here with no density. This looks okay over here. Let's see if we can get that around just a wee bit further. Yeah, in here I would aim for something like this over the whole train. This nice flow. I can't see, it looks like a nice clean reflection. There doesn't seem to be any odd artifacts in there. But then just this, it's just bad modeling practice. If you're going to have something in your showreel, make sure it's really good. I'd personally, at the moment, I would remove this from the showreel completely because it's not up to scratch. And again, I know this is a modeling showreel, but everything is so reflective. It would be so easy just to go and maybe just matte the material down, put a couple of really quick procedural kind of dirt masks in there just to break up the surface a little bit. Because it looks, again with this color cast as well, it just makes everything look like a PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2 kind of level of graphics. It detracts from the level of effort that's been put in to create the model, so it's a shame for something like that to kind of ruin it slightly. Yeah, again, the density, very dense panel here, lower here, absolutely nothing on the window. The license plate has nothing on it. It seems to be kind of the common theme in here. It would be what I'd suggest this artist to really practice on, is to just really work on keeping their densities the same, understanding where to put geometry, where not to put geometry. If you're going to have these windows connecting, have straight lines, or have this flow with the shape of the window. Instead you've got this weird wiggle, and it comes across, and it's going to introduce a pinching point up here, then it comes down. You've got this odd bit that comes, and then it's waving and wiggling, and then you've got this huge void that then comes up to a pinching point. Just follow. You've got this nice outline here. Just follow it. Instead of having, let me just bring this tool up here. I'd say instead of having all these lines coming and converging like you would have in a box object, it's just too. Okay, so what I would do instead is, you've got this, say for example we have that line, it's coming up and then it's coming down and around. Use this, so bring your lines out from here, and then you can have this, it'll flow nicely and have it follow the silhouette of that line. Have this for your topology, so you can try and, rather than have this corner pushed right up in here where it's going to introduce pinching, you're moving it back to here so that you've got this nice clean flow, and then you can easily from here you can cut in, you can make this, and it means when you loop round, if you select the loop, this loop's going to follow all the way around the silhouette of the bus. It's going to be much easier to control. Then you can quickly say take out this section and here, and then this, you can easily put your light in and you're still keeping this nice flow. This is I've removed this from the showreel straight away because this is really bad modeling. This will not get you far, unfortunately, so if this is not going to be fixed, take it out of the showreel. Otherwise it looked like a fairly nice clean model. Yeah, again with the densities, a big way to fix this, it's a common mistake that a lot of starting modelers make. So let's have in here, we have this topology, it's running down, it's all coming down and all coming across. Just get rid of these. You have this nice silhouette, so why isn't your topology coming down and around? And then have these loops again following the silhouette of the guitar. And have your topology coming off. I know these aren't the best drawings, but it gives an indication. You know, have everything coming around. Your topology shouldn't be forced to make the object. It should flow with the object. And you have this nice natural curving here. Your topology should match this. It should all flow nicely. You have that whole cut and easy there, and then you've got these points that'll come in. Something like this, that everything flows nicely together. If you're having to force your topology to match a shape, it's a general indication that you're not doing something correctly. And here, this is just these straight lines. They're just going down and down and down. This I would have, kicking off. You have this nice. You can introduce a loop. Let me just clear some of these off. It's getting a bit distracting. So here, instead of this coming down, you could easily add control in here. So you're going to reduce some of the geometry. Instead of having to have 4 lines coming in here, you've just got these 3. And then this can easily, you can put a loop in here to hold this, and then this can continue on out to the edge of the guitar. You're not going to have such a dense mesh. It's going to be much easier to control. It's just things that take time, but until these things are learnt, it's best to take any forced geometry like this out of the showreel, because it's detracting from stuff. But yep, textures look nice. Again though, everything has a uniform shine. So I'm going to quickly jump ahead into Modo, and we'll do a quick example of what I meant about that box. I might do a quick one about that guitar as well, just as I know it was quite difficult to understand the drawing I did on top there. So let's jump in there and have a wee look at that. Okay, so first of all, we're going to have a look at that, I believe it was a popcorn dispenser type thing. So for something like that, let's just start with a simple box. Oh, sorry, pull this up. Now what I believed happened, I'm going to put in a quick example here, as I think it's why things in that reel were so dense. I'm just going to make a copy of this. Now I think what's happened is this has been frozen out. There it is, freeze. I think something like this has been happened, which is why everything in that demo is so dense. You can see the disadvantage when you have these large gaps. You can see the introduction here. These spaces are getting wider and wider and wider, which is really not good for texturing. So what I would rather do personally is for this, you just need at least 2 in here. Now this needs another line. Now what I'll normally do is I'll probably do a couple of attempts at making something just so that I get a nice base topology. There we go. This is all fairly nice squares. The shape holds itself together pretty well. If this is not exactly what you're after, it's easy enough just to pull these loops in. And I would probably end up, if that holds up, yeah, that's not quite as soft, so that's fine. If you desperately need it, you can go in and put another loop in. For this, you can see where this point is here, where I'll put my mouse over it first, versus where it moves to. This is a huge jump, so I would probably introduce just another set in there. So as you'll see here, it almost is exactly in the same place. It's not jumping around. And it's not too bad if you have this just on an edge. It doesn't need to introduce extra all the way across, because as a general thing, this looks fairly uniform. The other alternative, let me just get rid of these lines here. In fact, it's quicker just do it this way. Just remove any of these supporting type loops. Okay, select the edges. All yeah, and then run, say, now I don't know how it works in Maya because I only use Modo, but if you want to have this as a sharp edge, you can introduce a square bevel in here. That's one way to do it, but for something like that I would probably just go with that original way of doing topology, as it is much faster. The only reason I would do something like this is if I was going to make this a rounded edge. Then I can introduce as big or small a curve as I please, and this will still hold up when smoothed. It will just give a much nicer rounded, almost kind of filleted effect. And with that same density, there's absolutely no reason for me to have super high resolution topology on top, and I can use this as my starting point. So I can't remember exactly how that piece looked, but say something like this, and then I can copy that out, just do a quick thicken on it, and then just go in and just add those loops in there again. Oops, sorry. Put back down to 3. And quickly enough, obviously you'd have to go in and fix these, but you've got that nice clean topology, you've got this nice panel on top of it, nothing's too dense, and it's all ready to be textured. So we're just going to go and have a quick look at a second example here. So I'm just going to quickly go through and make a very rough proxy of kind of a guitar type shape. Obviously this will be nowhere near up to scratch for an actual model, but we're just going to quickly make something just to show what I mean about that general topology. So it's the one larger on top of one slightly smaller circle. We'll just go in and take out these edges here, which we don't need. Now you would have to play with this curvature here to get exactly the way you wanted. I would probably bring these ones down to match. Let's just do a quick, obviously this would be nowhere near as clean as it should be if you do it properly, but I'm just firing through these quickly to give you an example of the kind of things I was meaning. Something like that. It needs a lot more refinement to get it perfect. Okay, probably introduce, need some kind of line in there just to hold that curvature. These are getting too close, so we'll pull them apart slightly. Maybe this will give you that very rough guitar shape. So from this point on, let's say, just join these edges up. How many do I need in here? So I need 9 edges. Okay, so I'm probably going to take a couple of these out here, so let's take out every second one. Cut these. This is kind of like the playing around stage, just to try and get the topology the way you want. Now in here, I'd use this as my introduction of that hole. Now this obviously needs some tidying up. This is really not good topology. So this is, you block things out first, then go in and make your refinement. There's no point spending time making really high resolution things and finding out you're wasting your time. For this example, I'm not going to go in and spend a lot of time fixing in here. This would be, you put the hole in here for where you're joining on the bridge, so you'd have to do something in there. But the main principle of this was, now that I've got this laid out, you can begin putting in these loops really easily. So rather than having to go in and have this forced geometry coming up and down, I can now go in and just introduce as few or as many loops as I need. So hold the shape together. I'm going to have a much less dense mesh, and this topologies, and ignore this section up here. In fact, what's causing that? There's a double vert. Let's just join that up. Okay, there we are. So now I can go in and really quickly edit this mesh. It holds its shape. If I want to select this loop, there we go, put the whole loop around. Any edge is matching. You'd have to go in and create. Turn it snapping off there. Join these up. just gently go in and massage the topology around until you get the kind of thing you're after. Maybe bring those down to there, something like that. It's all up to you how you're going to end up fixing this mesh. This is not great topology for this upper section because I'm rushing through here, but for this bottom, you're right on track. Just if you get these starting to introduce these weird kinks into model, just take a few seconds just to go in and quickly clear them off, because you see this is giving us this kink which is getting introduced here. So now if we introduce a loop into this here, so it's more kind of natural flow around. It's quick and simple, it's much easier, and if I want to edit something, it's not going to be such a forced objective to quickly go in. If I'm thickening it out, we've got a very rough guitar shape already. Super quick, not as dense, very easy to edit. So I'd advise going through and practicing something like that for that guitar. So let's move on to the next artist now. So let's continue on by looking at our second artist today. Let's go ahead and start playing the reel here. Okay, this is really so a bit more professional work in here. This is a really nice way to do it if you're ever wondering when you're doing your first kind of professional thing you want to show. But you look at a project like this, there's going to be so many artists who've taken part in creating this. This is a nice way to do it. Simply along the top, name of the film, quick thing, environment work, monorail damage. So I know, rather than looking at the whole thing, I'm going to be looking at this railway up here. Clean, simple, easy, and generally try and avoid having anything like this on top of the actual image itself. It's a nice thing with using more film stuff. You've got the black bars, so you've got this area to work with. So let's go ahead and continue here. There's not really much, unless there's breakdowns of these, there's not really much to comment on. Again, because there's been such a large team involved on it. It's just generally something to appreciate, and it shows that obviously the artist has enough skill that they've been involved in working on a large project like this. The same in here, nice and clean, but with no breakdown. There's not really anything I can say about the modeling. Okay, so first personal piece modeling here. First off the bat, looks like a nice clean render. Nothing distracting it. Nice and kind of, it's got some slight reflection to it, but it's very matte, which is something I appreciate. Makes the model very easy to read, and also you can still see any smoothing errors. Let's get that spinning around there. Something just slightly in the crotch section down here, I believe it's a panel break. We'll see in the topology if it shows up. There's a slight oddity in there. Something bizarre in these panels. I'm not sure if that's part of the design. It looks more like some kind of dough product rather than metal sheeting. Let's see what we can see in the topology though. And we have, for a model like this, it can be quite hard to control. But there is differences in these gaps here. There's odd gapping. That's something that would certainly need to be addressed, as well as intersections here, and these panels at the thighs. You can't have any intersections in a model like this. There we go with the topology. So I believe this is some of the reasons why you're having these issues on here is when this model's smoothed. The spacing and the topology. Let's bring up the snipping tool here. So you've got these two lines close together. I'm going to change the color. So you got these gaps in here. Now then you've got this massive void in between. There should be equal levels in here, and a much simpler way of doing this, rather than having, you've got this line that comes down here and here to make this corner, would be to have the topology come up. So let's do a quick drawing on the side here. So rather than having this coming here and coming here, which will keep that corner, but you've got less control. If I was doing it myself, I would have a line coming off here, something like that, and then I would pull the support loops off of there, and that way, rather than if you've got something up here having to put in and join and add, make this odd connection point. From here, say if I have, well, if we've got this corner, so we've got a corner up here, then I can just pull this topology straight. So I'm keeping the flow of the model, and I've got my supporting loop. Something more like that, and something I'll come down in here. So I've got my this kind of void in here, and this way there's this flow is not interrupted. Here the flow comes down, it's interrupted, then it redirects, and this you get this flow is just following the shape. I give much nicer smoothing results, especially in here, coming down, interrupted. This should, I think these are separate meshes, but this should continue. There should be this nice flow all the way around this model. This is just nowhere near dense enough. In here as well, should be lines in here. Just generally anywhere that you see these large gaps, there should be the introduction. It's quite hard to draw in this tool, sorry. Should be the introduction of additional loops, just to add that extra level of detail. And it's not going to add so much density to the render. It's not going to cause you too many problems, but it will vastly improve the model. Helmet looks quite nice. There's a slight change. You can see that this line comes in and then back out. I would try and have that just a straight flow down the helmet. But otherwise it's not too bad. Let's just continue on here. Exactly the same notes in the back. The general topology seems quite nice. There's a generally good flow to the model. This is nice coming around here. It's a little bit messy, but generally nice flow. Need a support loop up in here just to hold this, otherwise where this is coming around it pulls down, this goes up, and you've got this varying gap. Then you're going to have this introduction of a lot of stretching in here once you get the textures done. You've got this mismatch here, topology is coming down, stops dead, joins onto a piece with the same curvature, but there's no matching, so you're going to have odd reflections in there. Overall, it looks like there's a nice understanding of modeling as a whole, but it just really needs a pass just to polish things up. Nope, nice clean piece. It's a good starting point for a model. Nice beauty renders here. It's good to see some more close-ups of the topology there. But again, it's just the same notes. You've got the support loop in here, support loop down here. When I smooth this is going to stretch in between because there's nothing to hold it. There should be lines in the middle. Overall, not bad though. There's something bizarre happening here. I can't read it unfortunately in the model, but there's some, it looks like a triangle and some kind of another triangle, some kind of very odd artifact in there. There's more intersection happening here. Yes, so same with that line in the helmet comes in and out. It'd be nice to have it flow straight down. Just more topology in here to see. This is going to cause a massive error here. You got these edges coming down into a triangle. When this smooths, you're going to have a really weird artifact. You can kind of get away with it when doing that matted render that's on here, but for texturing, for destruction, for everything else, that needs to be completely addressed. It should be coming down into a quad all the way across. If it's going to be for VFX, I know there's probably who are doing games who would be more interested in triangles and things like that. If you want to be a really good modeler, you need to learn how to model with quads so it's completely useful for everything. There will be all the arguments again from people who make games and such about not needing them, but even if you're going to make a game, you make a high-res model, full quads, as good as it can be, then you create your low-res and bake down. You still need that good model as a base to work from. Otherwise, if you have an error here in the model, and when you start baking things or whatever you're going to do with it, these are all going to cascade down into every other step of the process, so it's better just to do it the first time. Massive n-gons in here. They should be quadded off, or at the worst kind of put into a central point. But yeah, it's just generally the same notes overall. It just needs more density and just a bit more attention to detail. This looks like a nice clean model. I'm hoping when this switches to topology view that there's some nice flowing edges coming down in here rather than some odd force thing. Though I am immediately noticing an error of, there's a curvature of this, which I believe should be exactly the same curvature as this, bit it is coming along, it's indenting, it's hidden by this panel, or it's intersecting, then it's sticking back out again. That's worrying, because this makes me think perhaps there's something wrong with the model, and there are these, again, it's difficult to tell if this is a design choice, but it doesn't look like it is one. You got this nice flowing curvature, and then I can see from where these loops have been put in to go and match other parts of the model, it's introducing these sharp bits that are messing with the curvature. You can see one in here. I imagine there's a couple of lines coming off here, whereas on this there isn't, so you've got this nicer smooth curve, which is then meeting this kind of curve, sharp corner, sharp flat face, and then coming back to the curve. But overall it looks fairly clean. The feet look pretty nice. Yep, nothing particularly odd standing out in the back, which is good. Yep, just symmetry on this side. Something odd going up in here where these holes have been cut in. I can see a lot of artifacting, kind of pinching and stretching, so we'll see that in the topology pass. Yeah, it's exactly what I thought would be happening. You have got this nice flow down here, but if this is going to be a matching curve, this line should come down here. Let me get my drawing tool up. This should be here and here. These should match up. This is a matching curve. If you don't have matching topology, this won't work. This gap here is no good. You need to move this back and have it coming down. This is what I thought as well. I can see that these three lines are coming off here, which is what's introducing that pinching point. This would be fine if this was also on here, but it's not, so you've got this nice smooth curve which has been interrupted by this non-matching curve with the topology, which is creating a pinch. That's not good for such a large surface and shape as well. It's something so easy to fix. Again here, this should be matching. You've got all this topology coming down in here and absolutely nothing. There should be lines in here as well. It's just the density is off. You need to have matching density across the whole model. Same up in here, massive spaces. The problem with this, I believe, if I swing this around to the other side where those holes were. Yep, so this is a curved object, this is cylindrical, but you're trying to, so for something like this, there would need to be at least 2 or 3 times the density around about, because we're trying to introduce this kind of hole being cut into only one polygon width. So when this is rounded, these polygons are going to be enough just to keep the shape of the cylinder, but then you're introducing this face on here, you're going to get all those artifacts that we saw, because there's just not enough topology for it to smooth. Exactly the same thing here, nothing matching up. This is it's a really simple mistake to fix, and it looks really bad, so for now I would remove this from the reel, because this is just really bad practice of modelling. Because it's such a simple error, it's worrying that something like this has been included. So I would clear this out until it's been fixed, or another project which is better has been created. So again, we've got down here density, these massive open spaces, the same in the feet. I can see there's support loops in here, but nothing in between them to hold the model. And straight off again, I can see what's going to, I imagine is going to be the same kind of errors in here. These curvatures don't match. There's pinching points in here, so we've got this, it looks fairly okay here, and it breaks out, comes to a point, then there's this change of curvature in here. Doesn't look too bad in the front. It looks fairly smooth. Something slightly odd in here. I can see definitely where the door panel split is. The introduction loops in there. You've got this odd bump forming from this curvature here. There's again kinks in the curvature. This doesn't match to the window frame. This is why, if you're going to send in a model, this one good point about this is the way it's been presented with this kind of slightly reflective but matte material. The wire frame, we love to see it because it lets us know exactly what the errors are, but I mean, we model for a living, so we can see edges as they're forming, and from just seeing these kinks in the model you can already start to interpret what's going to be there. So this is a really good way to present your model with this kind of material on it. Doesn't have to be this color, you can add a bit of stylistic flair into it as you please, but certainly this is a really good way to go about it. Yep, so easy to see where these errors are. The flow of this does not match up at all. But super high res, and then it's coming into these large open spaces. Again, you've got these high density lines in here coming into massive open spaces. There's no consistency. This again is, let me just get my drawing tool up. You get this line that's coming down in here, and this again, you're not following the flow of this card. This is a nice curved panel. It's coming down this way. So let me just clear these off. And the blue one here. And you see in there's this mismatch of panels with intersection. These lines aren't matching. This should be this nice curve that comes in here. It's this nice natural shape. The topology should follow it. You don't want to have that straight in the edge, so you have this nice curve in here, and then pull it in, and then maybe have your corner, because then rather than it being sitting on this edge where it's going to introduce this error, now you've got it away where there's got all this topology in between that'll average out the smoothing, so it's going to give you this nice natural flow. It's going to be so much easier to edit, and then from here you can just continue that topology down and off, and then you get this consistent curvature, whereas in here, because it's been forced into this curve, it's been a struggle to keep it. You can see the same type of things up in here. There's a lot of topologies being added in to try and force this curve into position, but as we could see from the clear renders, there's a lot of editing in it. Down in here, this is these panel joins. You've got this, you can see this curve in here, there's not as much density, and it's coming at this really high density area. This overall top section looks nice. I like this wheel arch. This is good. The same with this wheel arch in the back. It's a nice flow to it. The back end looks fairly decent. Let's just see a bit more here. So this front panel looks quite nice. I quite like the way that looks. There's something intersecting through here. The wheels are a little bit too dense. A good trick you can do is, if you're building tread into a wheel, rather than trying to build it all as one, you could build the basic kind of inner structure of the tire and then add the treads on top, and just with kind of a material edge rounding. So a nice way to quickly add that in. I believe on this kind of car, this kind of chrome strip is meant to go the whole way down the bonnet, whereas there's this gap where it's not matching up. Again, a product of topologies not matching. Okay, so we've got the next model here. Immediately the stitching is different lengths and shapes, so we've got a fairly natural stitch here that's then becoming what almost looks like a square. It doesn't seem to be following the same direction. These stitches are off at different angles from these. I don't know if there's meant to be stitching carrying along, and this looks slightly odd, but perhaps there's something in the textures. There's no feeling of the stitching doing anything. When this penetrates the material, there'll be a bump behind it where it's indented in and it's holding it down, and perhaps a displacement map later on that'll show that. There's a break in the stitching here, and this is faceted as it's coming down. You get this odd kind of angle and comes back up. There's this introduction of this weird, I don't know what this line is. The stitching disappears again here. Perhaps it's an old kind of shoe. Let's have a look. The topology looks fairly decent on this. Spin it around. There is, looks like either the bottom shoe is intersecting or there's double edging in here. You can see from how extra dark it is. But overall, this is actually a pretty nice flow. There's a little bit of too much density in here. This error up here again is that forcing geometry in. Now it's almost correct here because you can see the edges coming along and flowing up, but it's all been forced into this little point over here. This should be moved into more of a central, so everything's flowing around nicely, and then the corner's over here somewhere. Let's bring up that. the drawing tool there. It's very close. There you get this nice flowing, and then it's following this natural shape. And then this point here, I would have it over here somewhere. So then you're allowing for this edge to flow and follow the pattern as it should. And then off here, away from where it's going to cause trouble, then you can start introducing, so your more kind of standard topology in there. And this corner is able to smooth out between here and here, and it'll allow you this nice perfect edge without introducing any oddities or kind of pinching. This could benefit as well from just an extra loop down in here. It's perhaps one in here because there is a bit of stretching happening between these two edges. It is quite a large gap. Overall it looks pretty clean. There's definitely stretching here. You can see it out around here. You've got this nice clean border in all of them. It's a uniform size. Which you have in here, it's the same size, and then it's stretching. It's really got this curved dome on top because it's been pulled up. This needs another loop in here for sure. It needs loops in here. But overall the topology is quite nice. I would probably remove that spaceship we had. I'd remove it with the shoe. The car, I'd put that last if it's going to be in there at all. Keep the Hulkbuster. I don't know if there's anything else that's of a, okay, so that's the end of it. Yep. So personally I'd keep the Hulkbuster and the shoe. I'd probably, for now I'd keep the car because it does show potential, but there are quite a lot of errors in it, and get rid of that spaceship completely. But overall there is a knowledge here. You can see there's a knowledge of topology. It's just that taking the time to go back and just make sure things match up, polishing up. Don't just throw in edges and forget about what it means. Think about the relation to the rest of the model. But these are all things that just take time to learn. You can see there's some basic understanding of topology there. It's been put into practice, so there is a good foundation. It just needs to be practiced and worked on. Do simple exercises, like rather than creating a whole shoe, practice making corners where you have those nice kind of natural loops that flow around them, and move the corner away from the edge, like when I did that draw over on the side of the shoe. Practice doing things like that just to get into your head how to make that kind of topology, and it will allow you to improve so much faster. So yeah, thank you. Let's just stop this one here. So thank you very much for watching again today. I hope some of the advice that you found in this was useful to you, as well as to the artists who so kindly let me use their work. I've included links to their portfolios below, so feel free to go and follow them. Like any of their artwork. You can always keep an eye to see how they improve. It's a good way to watch, to understand how quickly other artists around you are taking on board things like this and how quickly they implement it to their work. It'll give you a feeling for where you stand in the scale of things. As always, it would be really helpful to me if you could share this video. The channel's still quite new, so at the moment my main concern is I need to get as many people in as possible so I can start things growing off. So if you know anybody who would like to have their work or showreels reviewed, please get them in touch, either in this video or in my LinkedIn. Descriptions are all links are always down in the description below. If you've got any views or opinions in the video, please comment away. It's good, it helps me improve. It's I also need feedback. Every artist needs feedback in everything they do, as well as when I'm making these videos. I need feedback to make sure I'm doing the right thing to help in a way that works for everybody, not just what makes sense for me. And it'll also help me improve the general quality of the videos and get an understanding what people think. So thank you very much for watching, and again thank you to the artists who let me use their work, and I hope to see you in the next video.